The story that I'm going to read is a very important story in the Bible, and a story that you should all remember to say a little bit more about who God is. And then I'm going to ask you some questions about some of the things that's in the story, and I want you all to respond, and you'll know how to respond, okay? Is that good enough? Y'all listen? Y'all listen? Yeah. I know I'm kind of talking to them, but I'm also talking to everybody else. Very good story for everybody to know and to remember the principles, the things that we can learn about the story. Before I read it, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what happens before the story. So this story is about a famous king in the Bible. It's about a famous prophet in the Bible. And it's about what God says to the people because of what this famous king had done. The king's name is Ahab. Anybody say Ahab? Ahab. All right. Ahab was a really, really bad king. He was supposed to do what God wanted him to do, and what he chose to do was pretty much the exact opposite of what God wanted him to do. And God kept telling him to do the right thing over and over and over again, and he kept not doing it, right? So what happens if your parents tell you to do something over and over again and you don't do it? Yeah. You get in trouble. Anybody don't get in trouble when you don't listen? You don't get in trouble? Your parents here? I need to talk to your parents. I need to find out where they are, so I can go talk to them real quick. So when Ahab kept not listening, he got in trouble. What's some of the things that happen to you when you get in trouble? Let me let somebody else respond, because I know more people get in trouble than you. Well, you gonna say something, Ashley? Or you don't want to give the parents any more ideas about what? Nobody's brave with Jasmine? Oh, come on. Has anybody ever gotten in trouble? Okay, that's what I thought. I mean, they know that they did it already. You're not giving them any new ideas. So what happens when you get in trouble? Okay. You get spanked. Okay. I won't tell anybody else where your parents gonna get in trouble. Okay? You get spanked when you get in trouble. Anybody else, what happens to you when you get in trouble? Okay, go ahead, Jen. You get a consequence. That's a big word. So what is consequence? Does everybody know what consequence means? Okay. Okay. All right. It happens, so I'll know what it is. Okay. So Lena, what happens to you when you get in trouble? Same thing? Okay. All right. Yeah. Good. I'm going to have to applaud the parents when they leave my job. So consequence, Ahab got a consequence, but it wasn't just a consequence for Ahab. It was a consequence for everybody, because Ahab was the king. He's supposed to lead people in the right direction. So the consequence was that God was not going to send any rain to Israel for years. That means more than one. For years, God was not going to send any rain to Israel as a consequence for Ahab not listening. And so the story kind of picks up from there, from where God had given a consequence to Ahab and then the people. When you get a consequence, when you get spanked, do you like it? No. Do you know why your parents give you a consequence or spank you? Is it just because you didn't do the right thing? Okay, which one of y'all got cell phone? Oh. We gotta give somebody a consequence for having their cell phone. Do a church service. Is there any other reason that your parents give you a consequence, spank you, whatever they do? Say it again. So you won't do it again. What's the positive side of you won't do it again? You know? What? Right, absolutely. So when parents, good parents, and other people give you a consequence or spank you, it's not just because you did bad things. They also want you to do the right thing. Any adults know anything about that? Amen. So listen to the story. I want you to, one, remember the story, and then I'm going to say a little bit more about the story. This story is in 1 Kings chapter 17. And at verse 8, remember before the story started, God had already given a consequence to Ahab in Israel, and it already said that it wasn't going to rain for years. So actually I'm going to start at verse 5. I hear we're still turning, which is good. 1 Kings 17, I'm going to start at verse 5 so you can get a little bit of back part and then we start. So Elijah did as the Lord had told him and camped beside Kidron brook. The ravens brought him bread and meat each morning and evening, and he drank from the brook. But after a while the brook dried up, but there was no rainfall anywhere in the land. And then the story that we're going to talk a lot about. Then, let me give you the title that's in my Bible that says this story. It says, The Widow at Zarephath. Then the Lord said to Elijah, Go and live in the village of Zarephath, near the city of Sidon. There is a widow there who will feed you. I have given her my instructions. Anybody know what a widow is? Okay, what's a widow? Who knows what a widow is? Right, a woman whose husband died. Very good. So he went to Zarephath. As he arrived at the gates of the village, he saw a widow gathering sticks, and he asked her, Would you please bring me a cup of water? As she was going to get it, he called her, Bring me a bite of bread too. But she said, I swear by the Lord your God that I don't have a single piece of bread in the house, and I have only a handful of flour left in the jar, and a little cooking oil in the bottom of the jug. I was just gathering a few sticks to cook this last meal, and then my son and I will die. But Elijah said to her, Don't be afraid. Go ahead and cook that last meal. But bake me a little loaf of bread first. Afterward, there will still be enough food for you and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. There will always be plenty of flour and oil left in your containers until the time when the Lord sends rain and the crops grow again. So what's the prophet's name? Y'all got that? There you go. Prophet's name is Elijah. All right. And then there's a widow. What's the bad king's name? No, he's not here. Ahab. Bad king's name is Ahab. Now, who's this person that... Well, let me ask this question first. Why does Elijah need to go to this widow's house? You remember what the story said? Okay. You're kind of hesitating. I'm going to ask Ezra, all right? Yes, Ezra. Right, to get some food because all the water and everything else had ran out where she was. So very good. Now, did it make sense that God wanted him to go to the widow to get more food? What do you think? Let me say a little bit more about it. It was a drought. There was no rain, right? And if there's no rain, you probably know, if you're in that day, in that culture, stuff does not grow. And she said, you remember how much stuff she said she had? And what was she going to do with it? And then what? Okay. And what? Yeah. She was going to cook her last meal because it was all she had left to eat. Anybody's ever been down to your last dime? $1 maybe today. Maybe 5, 10, 20. And when you have that last piece of money, how many of you just want to run out and buy someone else lunch? Right. Matter of fact, when you have a lot of money, you probably don't want to just run out and buy something. So, she was getting ready to have her last meal. Yeah. Anybody ever had a last piece of cake at the house? How many of you shared it with your brothers and sisters when you had that last piece of cake? One! That's good! But that's kind of like most of us. There's one in the back. If there's one last last piece of something that we want, we don't like to share it with others. We want it all ourselves. I'm going to give Jalen a big round of applause, and I'm not even going to ask his parents if he's telling the truth. That he shared his last piece. Well, Elijah wanted this widow to first give him some food, and then trust that there was going to be some more left for her. You remember that part of it? So it didn't really make sense that God was sending Elijah to go talk to the widow, to say, make me a meal and then make yourself one. Right? Don't you use the please? I don't know if he said please. Did he say please? He didn't say please. You know why he didn't say please? Well, no, he didn't say please because God told him to do it. And he didn't upset her or make her feel bad, but he told her what God had told him to do, and he was confident about what he said. He knew what he was saying was true, but it was still hard. If I came up to you and asked you to take your last $20 and buy me some food, and you knew whatever you were going to buy was going to cost $20, would you buy me some? First? Yeah. Right. But then Elijah told her, trust me, because God says if you give me something to eat first, then whatever you have left will keep on lasting over and over and over again. You know what Elijah was telling her? Bless you. He was telling her that if you trust God and do what God tells you to do, He'll make the little bit that you have be enough for you and also for Elijah, who was God's prophet. He was telling her that he was going to do a miracle for her and for Elijah. You know what a miracle is? Who knows what a miracle is? Anybody back here know what a miracle is? So somebody who hasn't said something before, tell me what a miracle is. Jay raised her. What's a miracle, Jay? It is a blessing. It's a particular kind of blessing. Jayla, all the way in the back. What's a miracle?
It's like when something good happens.
Something good?
Like out of the blue.
Like out of the blue? Okay. Janelle.
A gift from
A
God.
little bit louder.
A gift from God.
It's a gift from God. All of that is true. Now, if I add a little bit more, it's when something super extraordinary happens that to us is impossible. Amen. Because if you have $20 and your meal is going to cost $20 and you're able to buy 5 meals with your $120, that's pretty extraordinary. Like if the menu says this meal costs $20. And if you go in the restaurant and you take your $20 and instead of buying the one meal, it buys a meal for everybody, that's a miracle.
That's right.
That's a huge miracle. That's a miracle. Or if you have a gallon of gas, how many of y'all drive? If you have 1 gallon of gas, and if you're able to drive from here to Houston, Texas, where Marquisha and this Big Blue's relative live, you'd be able to drive from here to Houston, Texas on 1 gallon of gas. That's a long way. That's a miracle. Right? Or who plays basketball? I see one hand not going up. How high can you jump? Let me see. Which one of y'all can jump the highest? You can jump how high can you jump? You can hang on the net? So what if the next game that you were playing, if God told you, not only are you going to be able to hang on the net, but you got to be able to jump way up in there, turn a flip, and do a slam dunk. That'd be pretty incredible. And you ain't got to grow anymore. That'd be pretty incredible. But if God told you that and you trusted God and you tried it, and you were able to do exactly what you did, would you think it was because all of a sudden you could jump higher, or would it be a miracle? Yeah, it would be a miracle. So something just that extraordinary is what God was saying. It's hard to trust that it's really got to be a miracle when God is telling you you're going to do something, when your life is dependent on it. If you have your last money, your last bill, and God tells you to share it because it's going to make yours keep lasting over and over and over again. It's not just hard for you to do. It's hard for every adult, every teenager in this room to trust that and believe it. But that's what God was asking her to do. To trust what he was saying. To believe that it was going to be true. And not only was she going to be able to help somebody else, she was going to be able to help herself more. Because like Jasmine said, she was getting ready to go have her last meal. But what God was telling her, not only will you be able to eat the one meal, you'll be able to keep eating over and over and over again. That's pretty incredible, right? Yeah. She really believed God. She trusted God and did it, no matter how hard it was. How many of you all have done something like that? How many of you have done something like that? Something seemed like it was tough, but it wasn't going to happen. And you really believed God. I mean, who wants to tell me what you did when you really believed? What did you believe God about? I don't want to put you too much on the spot. Should I? Anybody? You don't want to tell me? Not you? Him? Oh, you go ahead. That's what we do, right? Have him tell, not me. Have him tell. It's like if you, I know people who left the job and didn't have another job to go to, and they did it because God told them to leave the job. And God promised them that he was going to take care of them and give them another job. And I know people who left the job and they didn't get another job immediately. But they kept trusting, they kept believing God. They were able to live on the money that they had. When it didn't make sense. That money should have run out. Right? And then eventually they got another job. Amen. That's called faith. When you believe something that doesn't look like it should happen or make sense. When you believe it, you trust it, you do it, and then God shows you just how much not only he loves you, but that he can provide. That's a good message, not just for you, but it's a good message for them. Amen. Amen. To have faith that what God tells you, really believe it. That's right. And then you act on it. Right? A lot of us would tell God, well, okay, God, before I feed somebody else and get somebody else some food, fill up my pantry first. But God says, trust me, and you'll have it. And so when she did it, when she trusted God, she had enough, and God gave her a blessing and worked a wonderful miracle in her life. How many of y'all can remember some of the story? Tell me some of the story. Anybody? Go ahead. Israel. Oh, Elijah started. Very good. Good. Ezra, you had your hand up? What do you remember? If you got what to remember, think about it a little bit longer. And then I'll come back and ask you. If you remember something, I'll come back to you, okay? Jasmine? Don't look at you. Okay, I look up in the ceiling. I won't look at you. Looking up here, I'm not looking at you. Yes. 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 Okay. Anybody else want to tell me what you remember? Okay, so I'm going to ask you again another day to see if you remember some of this story, okay? It's about Elijah and a widow. It's about God. It's about a little bit of food that God made last a really long time. Years. A little bit of food that was the last meal that God made last for years. Because God worked a miracle for him. So a couple of things, a couple of lessons that I want you to remember too. One is you should always listen to God when God tells you to do something. No matter how crazy it sounds, God tells you to do something, you can always trust what God tells you to do, okay? Like if God tells you something really, really, really bizarre, like always listen to your parents. Right? That makes sense to you. Just do it. Just do it. That wasn't fair. So that's one thing that I want you to listen. The other thing I want you to understand about is that God, whenever we give something to God, God always makes it more important. It makes it last longer than it would normally. God can take what we have and make it more important, make it last longer, make it do far more. Because even, I was talking to Jerry about jumping. Even if you give everything to God, you may not notice it always, but if you give your ability to God, God can make your ability even more than what you currently have because you're giving it to God. So that's two. So listen to God. That's three actually. Listen to God. Listen to your parents. And God can make whatever you have last longer, more important, actually do more. You want to say a lesson? That's a good lesson. Be obedient. So what's one thing Dad is going to do to be obedient? Follow directions. Very good. So can I check up on you and see if you follow directions better this week? So I'm going to ask them out there something too. Some of y'all know something. I'm not going to look at them because you told me not to look at them. Now, just when you talk, so they're not talking, it's okay if I look at them. Some of you know something that God has told you to do. I mean, you do. You're just as clear about it. And you're trying to explain why you don't really need to do what God told you to do. Why it's better that you keep doing the same thing that you've been doing all along. Until you listen to what God tells you to do, you're going to keep getting in trouble. You are. And if you keep being hard-headed, some kind of drought is going to come in your life. Things are just going to dry up. You don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. When we listen to God and trust Him, we always make better decisions. Some of us are doing stuff that's hurting us, that God has told us to stop doing. We just can't believe that we're going to feel better if you listen. You will. You'll stop putting yourself in trouble. You get yourself out of the drought, you'll live better. Not only that, you can demonstrate to these beautiful children up here that you can listen to God. And your life will go better when you do. Yes, Jack. I'm going to let you say what you're going to say. Okay, here we go. I'm looking over here. I'm looking in the mirror. Not looking at you. That is actually a very good. That's actually a very good thought. What did she? I hear what you said. I can hear. You can. If you get in trouble a lot of times, you keep getting in trouble, it's going to become a habit. Some of us are stuck in those habits. Being hard-headed, not listening. being in a wreck. So the lesson for them, listen to God. Do what He tells you to do. Amen? Amen. Sometimes even listen to the parents, the ones that's looking in the mirror, like when you're telling your kids not to do this stuff, and you go right out and you do it yourself. Amen. Amen. Be a good example for those who are looking up to you. Show them the right way to make good choices. And then they will actually learn that you mean what you say. And that actually when you listen and when you do the right thing too, things go better. One more thing. Yep. Guess what? Be a leader. Absolutely. Be a leader. The only way that you can lead is actually you go in the right direction and you make sure other people are coming with you. When you're not going in the right direction and you're telling other people to go, you're not a leader. You're a bad example of what you are. So I want all of you to remember the story. I want all of you to do one thing about being obedient and listening. Jasmine is going to follow directions better. That's what she said. Give me one more person who's going to do one thing better. Okay, Desire. What are you going to do better? Your grandmommy is here. What's one thing you're going to do better? You going to listen? You said you're going to listen? Okay. All right, good job. One of the toughest things that we do as parents as anybody else is actually be the people that we say. We say we're going to follow God, we're going to be God's people. One of the toughest things is to actually do that. To mean that not just when people are looking, but to mean that when we close the door, when nobody is looking. When our spouse is not there, our husband is not there, nobody's looking. To actually do what we say that we're going to do. Listen to God all the time. Mean what we say. Mean that we're really God's people who are faithful to God, committed to His Word, committed to live the example that He wants. That's a tough thing to do. You know what the downside of not doing it, the really horrible downside? We do something that we lie to ourselves like we're not going to do, and we show them that doing wrong is actually the right thing. A lot of times when we see our children making the wrong choices, this is the hard truth to go. It's our fault. They've seen us time and time and time again making bad choices. Lying all the time. Cheating on taxes. Leaving our room a mess. Mishandling our money. When we have those habits and we expect our children to do better, we're lying to ourselves. They look at us. And whether we want them to be true or not, they look up to us. They expect us to show them the right way to live. When we don't, we show them that wrong is right. Let's be better. So they can be better.